Hello, and welcome to Barely Keto. I'm Carl, and I'm here to explain to you what you can expect from my channel. I would imagine you're here because you're looking to lower your A1C, your cholesterol, and possibly your weight. If you're looking for some body shaming, overly aggressive, boot camp style channel, Barely Keto isn't for you. If you're looking for something that's all keto all the time, Barely Keto isn't for you. But if you're looking to join a community, learn some things about how you can take control of your A1C and your cholesterol by changing your diet, I'm your guy, and this is your channel. So let's get started. Short answer is no, it isn't easy. And anyone who tells you differently is either lying, trying to sell you something, or toxically positive. Changing from a readily available source of food all around you 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to a low carb, high fat diet that gets rid of the sugar, not just the sugar you're adding in, but the sugar that's already hidden within the foods that you're buying, as well as beginning intermittent fasting, it's going to suck. And the first 2 weeks are going to be the hardest part. I was so resentful by the end of the second week that I almost gave up. I've been cooking since I was a teenager, and my recipes are all memorized, my pantry is well stocked. I would put together things without even thinking twice about it. I could just read a recipe and figure out what it was going to taste like in my head and vice versa. Now I was presented with the problem of not understanding how any of this stuff works, how it sticks together, what to find to substitute for what, and then where to actually physically find those products. So my shopping experiences turned into little journeys. I would go out to 3 different stores just to find what I needed for one meal. And I resented it. I resented having to learn a new way of doing things. And the intermittent fasting, it was hard, very hard. And don't give up. The secret is that this is rooted in science. It works. If you do the work, it will work. And the other little secret is you're worth it. You've got to keep telling yourself that in your mind. You have to hold an image of yourself where you want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you need to make the changes to get there. And once you do make those changes, it will all get easier. I remember a friend asking me when I first began this journey, what's it like? And I looked him right in the eyes and I said, you know all those things that make food delicious? Well, you can kiss all that goodbye. So let's pull off a Band-Aid. All these sweet things that we've been eating our whole lives, well, they're gone. And these little tasty friends that are good baked or fried, boiled, they're all gone too. The thing is, we're emotionally bonded to food. We have whole holidays devoted to it. We just got through a series of them in Thanksgiving and Christmas. We've got Easter coming up. There are dishes that tie us to our family, tie us to our friends, tie us to our youth. And part of my comment back to my friend was based on the fact that I was in mourning. And I didn't realize it, but I was mourning the loss of all those things that tied me back to people who aren't even in my life anymore. Some of them are dead. You know, I do a lot of cooking from my grandmother's cookbook, and I felt like I had lost that forever. And what I came to realize is when I started sorting through these things, I could just make adjustments to things that I'd been doing once I figured out the framework. So the thing that I'm going to focus on is helping you with that framework. We're going to get you what you need in your pantry. We're going to make sure that your kitchen is set up and has the tools that it needs to make it not only easier but possible to do this. We're going to talk about meal planning. I'm going to be helping you by giving you all the hacks and the tips that I've learned in the last 5 months. It does work. Trust me. You're worth the effort. You are. And if you don't think you are, then you need to go back and look at that and then come back and try this. We'll be here. So the good news is you will get to a place where you'll find that there will be joy in the cooking again. You'll get the skills under your belt. And as we get older, learning a new thing is awkward. So brace for that too, because that's part of the problem in making the change, is you're doing all sorts of new things, and you might be of an age where you're just not as flexible around those sorts of things. I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, and I believe that being vulnerable and being our authentic selves is crucial to having a meaningful life. So I want to talk a bit about my story. The last 10 years of my life was quite a ride. At 43, I had 3 strokes that landed me in the hospital and then an inpatient rehab facility. At 45, I had another stroke that killed an organ in my abdomen. It was like being shot. Another hospitalization and long recovery. At 48, I bent over to pick up a stick and had another infarct event that killed part of the retina in my right eye and left me with a pupil that's a little on again, off again, David Bowie. Sometimes it looks like a cat eye, sometimes it looks like a goat eye, sometimes it looks like a potato. And in addition to that, you can see the other things that I was going through on this chart here. My activity level went from carrying 4x8 sheets of drywall into my house that I was renovating to basically nothing for a very long time. And I didn't course correct my food intake. And as a result of that, 10 years later, I'm 53 years old now, and I had my aha moment, which I'll get to in the next piece, that brought me to the realization that I had to make drastic changes to my life if I didn't want to end up on the path of type 2 diabetes and bad cholesterol. And with my heart history, that's the most important thing for me in terms of how I spend the back half of my life. Now, I don't say any of this because I'm looking for pity. In fact, I think I'm pretty fucking lucky, all things considered. And sorry to curse, but that's how I feel. And I just share that so that kind of regardless of what you've gone through or what you think about yourself or the image you have of yourself in your mind, in your ability or inability or disability, you can get where you want to go with this diet. If you want to take control of your A1C and you want to take control of your cholesterol, you can do it. I'm the living proof of it. You can do it. And I'm going to help you. Here's how I came to this lifestyle. In July, my cardiologist referred me to another person in his practice, a doctor that specialized in analyzing people's blood chemistry for things just like A1C factors, cholesterol, and genetic markers. So in advance of that meeting, some blood work was ordered. They drew about 8 vials. Genetic testing takes quite a lot of blood. And by the time I came to my first consult, she already had the results. So I'm sitting in the exam room. In walks the doctor. She stands opposite me, gives me the up down literally, like I'm at a singles bar or something. And without any preamble, she says, well, you're morbidly obese and you're officially diabetic. I'm giving you 8 weeks to change that, and then I'm going to have to put you on diabetes medication. I was horrified and ashamed. I went into a bit of a spiral, I think, and honestly, the next few minutes were kind of a blur. And the next thing I know, she says, I've got a book for you. If I give this to you, will you bring it back at your next visit? And I said, sure. So she goes out and she comes back in with this book. I can't tell you strongly enough, get this book. It's going to be referenced a lot on this channel. But her message to me was pretty simple. Cut out the sugars in all their forms and flavors. Reduce your carbohydrates. Do intermittent fasting, which was eat within an 8-hour window, and then nothing, no calorie intake at all for the remaining 16 hours. And you can do that in any 8-hour window that works for you. She said eat salmon once a week and read this book, and that was pretty much all she said. And off I went. When I got home from that appointment, I kind of wrapped my head around things, and I immediately went to my computer and went to my patient portal because I'm pretty much a mirror guy. Like, I can hold up a mirror to myself and take a hard look, and I had a huge blind spot for this. I mean, obviously, I knew I was getting heavier, We all know our clothes fit less well. You know, we start wearing the soft, stretchy things. Throw in COVID where nobody sees you. You don't have to look in a mirror very much. And aside from the occasional Zoom call, you know, you really don't have to look very closely at what's going on. So I needed to see the data. So I looked into all my history for as many years back as I could find. I found a graph function that showed how each of the values kind of connected the dots over time. And then I kind of laid that side by side with that chart I showed you earlier of all my physical injuries that correlated to all of my just kind of being shut down from physical activity. And man, it was an eye-opener. And again, I don't know how I was able to miss it. But she ripped that Band-Aid off for me pretty darn well. And I got home, told my husband about it, Jim, and you know, I have a lot of drug sensitivities, so going on a medication is not easy for me. There's always some consequence about it, and it's been like that for my entire life. And I just did not see myself as having the personal identifiers of morbidly obese and diabetic. And so I explained to him what she said to me, you know, that I was going to have to make dramatic changes. I had only 8 weeks to do it, and this is what that would look like. And he said to me, I will go on this journey with you. And let me tell you, if you're in a relationship, having somebody who's willing to do this with you is going to make it so much easier, or everyone has to start cooking and cleaning for themselves. And that's really not a good way to live your life. So we started. And in a matter of 7 weeks, I turned it around. My A1C dropped by half a point, which was enough for me to get me out of full-on diabetes and back into a comfortable margin of pre-diabetes, which in 7 weeks I took as a win. My waist shrank 4 inches. My cholesterol panel was really, really good. There was still, you know, a clunker in there that I needed to work on to get my healthy cholesterol up. But I was amazed. It was not easy. I told you in the last segment, it is not easy, and it was not easy. And we'll go over how to make that easier for you. But it worked. And I didn't believe that it could work. It seemed too austere for me from a life of clearly not, you know, too much throttling about what I was eating. And I needed to make the change. I want the back half of my life to be as good as it can possibly be. And I want your life, no matter how old you are, I want the rest of your life to be as good as it can possibly be. So that's how I got here. That's a bit about my journey, and I will help you along the way. So everybody loves a success story. Obviously, I have a long way to go. But at this point in time, I'm 40 pounds down. I've lost 5 inches off my waist. My A1C has fallen out of diabetes range. And my cholesterol is definitely turning around. My husband, he saw his doctor in December for the first time since we started. He came home and said his doctor was positively giddy at his blood work results. His A1C fell, his cholesterol has gotten a lot stronger, and he's lost 20 pounds. Now my friend Chrissy, she has been on diabetes medication for some time. She's also morbidly obese, and she told me that I could share some of her successes with you as well. And she's actually going to be on an episode, either the next episode or the one after that, depends on the timing. But she has lost, let's see, she started in September. I'm reading it so I get it right. I don't want to be mad at me. She started it in September. When she started, her fasting morning glucose was around 223. At just 7 weeks in, following the low carb, high fat, no sugar, intermittent fasting, her fasting glucose in the morning was around 100 now consistently. And by then she'd lost 23 pounds. Now, she was so encouraged by that, that over the next 2 months, she added regular exercise, about 30 minutes a day. She started doing yoga at home, and now she's down a total of 50 pounds. And when she saw her doctor, his exact words were, "I am blown away by your progress." And he had to reduce her diabetic medication. So it works. It works, it works, it works. Here's what Barely Keto is going to do for you. First, you're going to get this book. Not because I have any financial stake in it, but because it's an excellent template for how to make this change. It explains the science. It's a little deep on the science, quite frankly, but it also walks you through towards the end a lot of very practical examples, some sample meal plans that were so austere they almost brought tears to my eyes, which is how I ended up modifying things so that I could look at the marathon approach rather than the sprint approach. But depending on your situation, you might want to sprint. So it's got a lot in there for, getting yourself started. The second thing I want to talk about is I would really strongly suggest that you get a baseline. That was my dog Shelby. She likes to participate. Get a baseline of your A1C and a lipid panel. Because when you start getting frustrated with this, 90 days go by and you're feeling like, this just isn't working, get another lipid panel and another A1C test and see if it is or it isn't. And then you can course correct as you go. But what we're going to talk about is we're going to follow my real life application of the whole low carb, high fat, no sugar, intermittent fasting. Say that once fast. And we'll have guests on along the way to talk about their journey and their struggles and their interest or disinterest in trying to make this work for them. I'll show you how to get set up for success. We're going to clean out your pantry. I went through mine and I took about 6 bags of things to the local food pantry. They were thrilled, but for me it was like letting go of a loved one. And then I'm going to help you set up your pantry with what you need to be able to, cook within this framework. I'm going to talk about what you need in the kitchen. And again, I said earlier, this is not an inexpensive proposition. The food is pricey, and some of the tools that I use, because it does save me time, and I found that I was investing way too much time in the prep work, they can get a little pricey, but I've gotten a lot of things as rebuilds as well, so that saved me some money. But we'll talk about all that in another episode. And we'll talk about meal planning. One of the things that I found out is you have to have a plan. For me personally, anytime I failed, it was because the hunger got ahead of my ability to make something that fell within the framework, and I'd cheat. And that was a pattern that then made it harder for me to fast the next day. So we'll get into what I've learned about that as well. And we'll talk about recipes. I'll show you how to make things. I'll show you how to modify your recipes. I'll show you some of the things that I've come up with that have made me able to reconnect to the joy of actually eating within this framework, which if somebody had told me that 4 months ago, I never would have believed them. But you can refine the joy in eating even within this particular framework. So I hope you'll like my video. I hope you'll share it. Feel free to subscribe to Barely Keto. And if, like me, you're okay with opening up and being vulnerable, one of my key goals is creating a community so we can share with each other our successes and our failures. There is a piece of pizza in that freezer right now. Long haul, marathon view. But feel free to put your comments below. I'll be sure to weigh in if you do. And we're all in this together. So until the next episode, use what you have to do what you can to get where you want to go. Until then, I'm Carl. This is Barely Keto, and I'll see you next time.